Alright everyone, welcome to Brit's Blueprint Chest Edition. So let's go ahead and get right on into it. Today we're going to be going over how I like to set up chest workouts and giving you guys some ideas how you can design your own chest workout as well. With that being said, a lot of the principles we're going to go over today are going to be heavily based on Dorian Yates' high intensity training styles. That's what I learned from him a couple years ago when I trained with him, so that's predominantly what we're going to go over, but we'll give you guys some other ideas to base everything off of, because like I've said before in my leg day video, I don't believe in being super dogmatic with everything. I think there's multiple ways to get to a destination, and so really the best way to figure out what works is by just trial and error and by tracking things and writing down data points and fixing things from there. All right, to start off, basically what I like to do is for the first movement we'll just pick a pressing movement. In fact, the three movements Dorian prescribed to me were 2 pressing movements and a fly, so just 3 workouts for the pec muscle. Now the reason why I'm not picking a certain press movement is because everyone's shoulders are different, everyone's scapulas, elbows, just arm lengths, all of those things are very different. So what may be comfortable for me and give me the most stimulus for my chest may be different from you. So to start off, I typically go for an incline movement, usually a dumbbell incline press for the first movement here. For the second press, a lot of times I'll either go to a flat dumbbell press or a form of machine like a hammer strength flat press, hammer strength incline. Sometimes to even the hammer strength decline machine, or even just a barbell decline. Now when I do program these, I keep them in usually for up to close to 4 to 6 months at a time. So again, starting off here with the dumbbell incline press for myself, then typically either a machine, hammer machine, either flat or incline. My lower chest is a little bit more developed than my upper chest, so that's where my focus has been lately. And then from there, I like to add in dips. That hits my lower chest really well, and that's why I currently don't have like a barbell decline or a decline machine movement for one of my presses, is because I do go into the dips afterwards, and I get a really good stretch really across the whole pec, but especially that lower pec region. Now when I'm doing these dips, when I'm on the dip bar, I'm leaned forward a bit more, kind of pressing towards the ground. So I'm not getting as much tricep in there. It's not a tricep dip, it is a chest dip. Then after dips, I like to go to a fly movement. What I've been doing currently is a cable fly, usually from about the middle range, just pressing out from there. In the past I've done them from the high cables. I don't really like doing cable flies from the low position. I use a lot of arm. My front delt really likes to cave in or come forward and take over that motion, even if I'm stepped out really far, trying to really step back to keep my chest forward to my shoulders. So I found that going from the middle or the top for a cable fly works best for me, or if I'm doing a dumbbell fly, and this is something Dorian taught me, both with the dumbbell fly and the dumbbell incline press, he didn't like to use a super high incline. In fact, it was typically just 1 notch up from flat. So just coming up from flat, just enough to kind of get your shoulders in a better position, alleviate some of that pressure that can be there, but not up to like a 45 or higher degree incline to where, again, you could potentially be placing a little bit more stress on your shoulders. And I found that works really well for me. I fit really well into just 1 notch up from flat for my decline incline press, my dumbbell incline press and my dumbbell incline fly as well. So that might be something that you try using. I feel a little bit stronger there too, can press a little bit more weight than if I'm up at like a 45-degree incline. So that's something you can try there as well. And then being in the military, push-ups are part of our physical fitness exams. So I do like to just keep some push-up movements in there. Usually with the Army's new physical fitness exam, I like to get around 40 to 45 push-ups in the 2-minute time that we have. So I usually do 3 sets of 20 push-ups at the end of the workout, or I'll superset them in between my sets of dips. Now, as we talked with legs, Dorian really was big on just doing the one working set. And as we talked in the leg day video too, he liked to do 2 warm-up sets. Easiest way to figure that, we'll just go over that again. First warm-up set would be 50% of your working weight. Second warm-up set would be 70%, and then you'd have your working set. So if you were doing 100 pounds incline dumbbell presses, the first set would be at 50 pounds for 6 to 8 reps. The next set would be probably about 65 pounds, maybe 70 pounds, for again about 6 reps. Because we want to prime the muscle, we want to get the mind muscle connection going, get some pump going, but we don't want to break over into fatigue and working. And then the working set would be anywhere from 6 to 10 reps. Again, depending on your level of lifting, and if you're lifting with a partner, you might utilize forced reps at the end of that drop set or rest pause. If you are lifting alone, like I stated in the leg day video as well, if you haven't seen that yet, if you are lifting alone, it might be beneficial after your one working set to get 2 minutes of rest and then try again for a second set. However, that second set, usually you're not going to hit the same numbers. If you got 10 reps on working set 1 and then rest, if you're pushing with that same intensity, you might get it 6 to 8 reps. If you're lifting alone and using more of a 2 working set scheme, I would probably stay a little bit away from any intensity increasing techniques like drop sets, forced reps, or rest pause, since you're adding that extra intensity in through a second working set. Now, part of the reason why Dorian ended up reducing from 2 working sets to 1 working set is to this quote right here that's actually from his study guide that says, "It is not possible to put 100% effort into multiple sets." If you're doing German volume training, which is 10 sets of 10, either you're going to hold yourself back in the weight that you can do for 10 reps in order to get through all 10 sets of 10 reps, or you're going to start off with heavy weight and high intensity, but you're not going to be able to sustain that for all 10 sets. You're going to end up having to drop the weight or fall short of your reps. So if we're really wanting to focus on the intensity of effort going into the sets and bring the most intensity we can, then we're really not going to be able to do a lot of working sets due to the intensity we're bringing. Now, if you do turn down the intensity a little bit, then you would be able to do 2 or 3 working sets. But as Dorian kind of states it, what's the point in doing that? Let's bring the most intensity we can into one set, push the most weight possible. That's then going to cause that progressive overload to happen, cause that trigger for the stimulus, because we've given our body a new stress that it's not used to, and then our body is going to then want to adapt to be able to meet that stress again in the future and be able to overcome it. And just to define intensity for our purposes, again, this is how Dorian Yates and Mike Metzner defined intensity, and it says, intensity is a percentage of momentary muscular effort. So it's that peak muscular effort, like when you're getting to that final rep where you are just all out. Everything is into it. You're not shy. You're not giving it 80%. You're not giving it 90%. You are giving 100% full effort. And I think sometimes when people think of an intense set, it's hard for them to grasp that, and then also to understand, why it is that you would only want to do one working set. And again, Dorian has an analogy he uses for that, if it was all about multiple sets and reps, then people digging ditches would be a lot bigger than they are, right? If you're swinging, a 20-pound sledgehammer all day, or shoveling, ditches all day, while those people may have a certain level of fitness and endurance and everything, they might not necessarily be the biggest person, right? They're not going to be as big as Dorian God or other top bodybuilders, because that work isn't intense enough or specific enough to cause the growth. Now, if you swung a 10-pound sledgehammer for 10 reps and that was heavy for you, and you couldn't really swing it again, and then the next time you came back, you grabbed a heavier sledge, and the week after that you grab a heavier sledge and progress it that way, then you're going to be able to achieve the progressive overload and keep moving that by adding new stimulus that the body isn't used to. So while digging ditches, swinging a sledgehammer is hard work, it is not giving us, that hard work is not giving us the intensity of effort needed for muscle growth and proper hypertrophy to really maximize the growth that we're trying to achieve in bodybuilding. So then going back on to setting up the chest workouts. Again, we're going to follow, this is pretty standard working sets, as I talked about in the leg day video as well, 10 to 20 working sets per week. So here I have 5 movements, right? 2 presses, dips, 6. 2 presses, dips, fly, and push-ups. No, wait, no, I can't count that as 5, sorry. It's been a long day. I just got back from doing chest, so blood's still everywhere else. But if you're doing 2 working sets at each of these, then you're going to end up with your 10 working sets per week. And because you're chasing intensity, or if you are chasing intensity, that will be sufficient stimulus for the week. Now, if you are wanting to do a push-pull legs or something similar, and wanting to get 2 body part or work every muscle group twice within the week, that's where we look at this A-B split we have listed here. So go ahead and erase this really quick. So if I was to set up to do an A-B, like 2 chest days in a week, I would, for workout A, I would have a press movement. Second workout exercise would be press movement, and then I'd end with a fly. If you did 1 workout of each of those and then did a second workout with 3 movements as well, then you'd have a total of 6 working sets. Or, for each of these workouts, if you do 2 working sets, then you'd end up having 6 working sets per workout, totaling 12 for the week. So like I said, workout A being a press, fly. Workout B, I would keep it with another press, and maybe dips, just to get a little bit of variety in there. You could change up the presses that you're using for those to try and create some different stimulus. I've found, especially for my chest, because it is a little bit smaller of a muscle group, if I hit it with enough intensity, 1 workout per week is more than sufficient. I'm not really recovered enough. It's not, especially not within 72 hours. It takes me probably about 5 days for soreness and everything to go away and for me to feel fresh enough. But where I end up taking a full week is because I'm looking at overall systemic recovery. Chest is usually the first day of the week for me, and after chest we have shoulders, back, and legs. And back and legs really end up taxing my overall system, central nervous system. So that's why I end up just waiting a full week until I work out chest again. You could try and do something where you work out chest, shoulders, rest day, back, legs, rest, and then hit chest again. So you're getting it kind of twice within 6 days. But again, I'm just telling you guys what I found has worked for me and how I've liked doing things. But overall, no matter what, try and work up to at least 10 working sets for every muscle group per week. As far as reps, in the leg day video, I mentioned that from everything for the waist down, Dorian liked to do 12 to 15 reps for his working sets. And for everything from the waist up, so for chest, shoulders, back, arms, he liked to work in the 6 to 10 rep range. Now flies, you could work that upwards of, up to 30 reps, because you're using a little bit less weight, and it is kind of more, I feel like a good pump workout, a good way to draw in lots of blood into the muscle. But I pretty much stick to this. I like to work towards 6 reps, and as I get close to 8, 9 reps on that lift, then I bump up the weight the next week, which usually brings me back down to hitting it for 6 reps, and I work at that weight until I'm getting it again 8, 9, maybe even 10, and then I bump the weight up. So that's how that cycle continues. For dips, I like to be able to do 10 dips. And once I can do 10 good controlled slow dips, going slower on the lowering portion and then being explosive on the positive, but always doing the lowering slower than the positive. And with dips too, just on the form on that really quick, I'm not locking out at my elbows. That puts a lot of stress on the elbow joint. You can develop some tendonitis, some elbow tennis from that. It also will pull it, getting that lockout will pull your triceps in more. So I come just shy of locking out, find where that tension spot is on your chest and stop there. So for me, my arms are probably stopping on the dips right about there, which keeps my chest fully engaged. But once I can do 10 dips, then I like to grab a weight belt with a chain and start adding weight, whether that's a 10-pound plate, 25-pound plate. So then, if I add a 25-pound plate, that might drop me to be only being able to do 6 reps with dips. So I work at that added weight until I'm doing 10 again, and then maybe add another 5 or 10 pounds onto the weight belt. And I like to do two sets there with dips typically. So the first set I'm usually able to get up to 10 reps, and the second set I'm usually around 7 or 8. But I base my weight increase off of how many reps I'm getting on that first set with dips. So if I'm at 10, then I know the next week I'm gonna bump up the weight. I'll drop back down, like I mentioned, and run that cycle. Now as far as elbow placement and locking out on our press movements and flies, kind of similar to like what I said with dips. I don't like to lock out my elbows at the top of any pressing movements. I don't feel, in fact, that takes away from the tension, puts more stress on the elbow joint. So I like to find the spot just shy of locking out where my elbows are still have a slight bend to them, and I really just focus on squeezing my chest at the top of that movement and not trying to drive through, because that puts more stress on my shoulders and my tricep and my elbow joint. So I actually don't lock out on those movements in order to keep the tension on the chest. Same goes for flies. And with flies, I'm not thinking about, touching the handles together if I'm using cables or a pec deck. And I'm not thinking about touching the dumbbells together at the top either. Really what I'm focusing on more than anything is my elbow placement. So as I come down, I'm thinking the elbows are drawing apart. I might get to a good 90-degree angle or just below. Whatever is comfortable for you, gives you a good stretch without causing any shoulder impingement. And then coming back up to the top, I'm thinking about not squeezing my hands and getting my hands to touch, but about if I was to squeeze my elbows together. Now, if I'm thinking about squeezing my elbows together, really, I'm never going to get my hands to touch at that point without doing that. But that, for me, just brings in more front delt. So I'm thinking about squeezing those elbows together at the top, and that's been a good way for me to do my flies, keeping tension on the chest, keeping away from adding any extra stress to my shoulders or elbow joints as well. Now something I've more recently played around with is my hand, and more specifically paying attention to my knuckle placement on the barbell or on the dumbbells. You know, before I just recently hit 315 on flat bench. It's something that's been bugging me for a long time that I couldn't do because I'm pretty strong elsewhere with dumbbells. But as soon as I started playing around more with the grip, I was able to find more power and find a more stable position for me to bench from. So I used to always let if I'm laying back flat on the bench, I used to always let my wrists roll back like that. And what I noticed was, rather than my lat being more engaged, even with trying to, have a good arc in my chest, keeping my chest up, a little roundness to the back, keeping my glutes on the bench, having my feet planted good on the floor. With the wrist rolled back, it was actually putting more stress on my shoulder and engaging my rear delts more than my lats. So I had actually watched some videos of some power lifters and some people that Squat University had posted on their Instagram page, talking about, really trying to get that, the barbell or the dumbbell, really trying to get it wedged in here and kind of cutting across the palm rather than being straight, but really trying to dig this area of the thumb in to the barbell. And then as you wrap around, rather than letting that wrist roll back, which just doing that puts a lot of uncomfortable tension on my wrist, but rather keeping the hand more rolled forward. So as I'm benching, I can't fully see my knuckles, like if I have my wrist rolled back. So keeping my wrist pointed up towards the ceiling when I'm laying down on the bench, just having those hands rolled forward so I can only barely see the very back of my knuckle, not to see the full thing like that, actually helped engage my lats a lot more, took tension off my shoulders, and ultimately placed more of the press where I wanted it to on my pec. So paying attention to that knuckle placement has really helped me on both barbell and dumbbell. Now, you might not feel as strong at first because, the barbell, it's not sitting flat back on your hand, so there's less surface area on your hand that the barbell is sitting. So you do have to have good grip strength. There's a variety of grips you can use, whether you're gripping over your thumb like that, or you're pinching your thumb through your index and middle finger. There's a variety of things you can use. If you feel unsafe with your grip, start off by using a spotter, because if your grip slips there, then that barbell can come straight down. But I've found a way that works good for me in feeling safe with that. And again, you can do this at home, right? You can even just stick your arm straight out like this, kind of, flex your chest a little bit, kind of see how your arm feels with your wrist like that, and just roll your wrist back like that, and kind of pay attention on your back, like where are you feeling it? As soon as I start rotating back like that, I can feel more tension in my upper back and shoulders, but as it rolls forward, I feel it more properly placed down here in my lat and over on my chest. So that's been something that's really helped me, I feel like, improve my bench technique. So hopefully, play around with that, see if that helps you as well. And we'll talk about that same knuckle placement and paying attention to where it is on back day as well, because that's something I've also found has helped me keep my lats engaged as opposed to my upper back, but we'll save that for back day. I kind of already mentioned bench setup, how Dorian liked to do it for the dumbbell incline presses, and for the dumbbell flies, he liked to have it just slightly inclined, so just one notch up from flat, not raising it to the third or fourth position that puts you up, between probably like a 35 and 45 degree angle. So you might notice if you do bench those higher angles, if you drop it back a little, you might feel a little more comfortable in your shoulders and ultimately have a little bit more strength. But if I'm benching from the very flat position, I also, especially on my left side, my left AC joint, I have to just pay a lot more attention, and it's not quite as comfortable. So just bringing that incline up a little bit from flat also has helped me feel much safer, much more controlled with my bench. And as far as warming up, I do recommend, you warm up your rotator cuffs before chest day. Now there's a bunch of ways to do that. You can just start off by doing, just arm weight, just some rotations like this. You can grab a 2.5 or 5 pound weight plate, hold that, and, just do some rotations like that. Or also like this, you can pull the cable across, do some very light rotations there. Anything to get blood into your shoulder and rotator cuff area. I found, a set or two of good controlled push-ups can also be helpful for warm-up, but again, not reaching into that area of starting to fatigue. Doing some light sets on the pec deck can also be, some light flies can be a great way to start some stimulus there. There's a couple other things you could do with cables, but I will say, when you're setting up your presses, one thing you might want to note, and if you're using a new machine or trying to find, the right seat height for like a hammer strength incline or hammer strength flat machine, something beneficial that you can do is stick your arm straight out and flex your chest, and then kind of, maybe move it down a couple degrees, bring it back up to straight, slightly raise it a little bit, and just pay attention to where you feel the most activation in your chest, because that can differ for everyone. Like I feel mine is better from about here to down here. So I keep that in mind when I'm setting up my bench and laying back on whether it's an incline dumbbell movement or a new machine. I try and find, where am I going to be, what seat height and everything puts me in a good spot where I press out to where I found that maximum contraction, right? As soon as I get here and above, it severely drops off. Like I can feel my chest just instantly loosen up. So that can be a good way to find out where kind of a good maximal contraction spot is for you and where you want to ultimately bring your arms to at the peak of your press. Some people, it might be a lot lower, pressing down here. Some people, it might be right in that perfect kind of mid-range. Some people maybe just a little bit higher. And lastly, for elbow placement, also, again, kind of what's comfortable for you. I like to have my elbows tucked in just a little bit, kind of creating a 45-degree angle out here. I'm not coming down at 90. That does not feel good on my shoulders at all. It might feel okay for you. So again, just keep that in mind. That's pretty good for me. Some people I know, even just the 45 degrees isn't comfortable for them, so they do more of almost like a neutral grip press, and their arms are rubbing almost right along their rib cage. Even, whether they're using dumbbells that are coming out to a neutral position or, using a barbell, but keeping those elbows in really close. So try those things out, play around with them a little bit in your warm-ups with light weight before progressing up to heavier weights with those. But those are all things to keep in mind. So that should pretty much cover everything for chest day. Sorry, that was a lot of information and might have gotten a little out of order there. But if you guys have any questions of how I like to set up chest workouts, please feel free to reach out. Hopefully this gives you some ideas of different things you can do. And again, whatever you do decide choosing for your exercises, for your pressing movements, or the type of fly you like to do, ultimately just get a workout journal, write these things down, track them over time. If you're not progressing and getting stronger after 4 weeks, then you might need to delete an exercise completely and only do 4 lifts or even 3 lifts. Or you might need to reduce the amount of working sets you're doing. If you're used to doing 3 working sets, maybe try 2. If you're doing 2, maybe try 1. More isn't always better. It is with money, sometimes, or other things, but we're playing with recovery here too. So a lot of times that progression isn't happening because we're not fully recovering. So the best way to track all these things is just write down the weights and the reps you're doing, write down your warm-ups, and write down how the workout felt, as far as pump and energy levels both before and after. If you're not eating enough, that can also play into recovery as well. So tracking all these other side data points can really help you fine-tune a good program for yourself. So that's my biggest thing there is no matter what you decide to do, whether you want to do high intensity one working set, or if you want to stick to like a push-pull legs or some kind of A and B lifting where you're hitting every muscle group twice within the week, that's fine. Just write those things down. And again, if you're not seeing the progress that you want, then you can start adjusting things from there, and at least you have that data to work from. So that's all for now. Next time we'll either go over back or shoulders, so stay tuned and let me know what you guys thought. Please subscribe, it's always helpful, and let me know if you have any questions down in the comments. Thanks.